Sarah Mitchell sat in the third row of the courthouse. Her hands were shaking. She held a small bag with all the money she had left in the world, exactly $1 in cash. The old courthouse smelled like old wood and sadness. This place had seen many people lose everything. Today, Sarah was here to try something crazy. She was 30 years old and looked much older. 3 years of hard work on her family's farm had made her face tired and brown from the sun. Her clothes were old and torn. Her shoes had holes in them. She had no money. The bank was going to take her family's apple farm next month. She had come to this auction with one last hope. Maybe she could buy an old water pump. With water, she could save her dying apple trees. But Sarah did not know that her life was about to change in a way she could never imagine. The auctioneer was a tall man named Mr. Dale. He stood at the front of the room and spoke into a microphone. "Lot number 42, he said. The old Miller Cannery. This building has been abandoned for 30 years. The roof is broken. The walls are falling down. The county says it is not safe. But the land is good. 2 acres of land. The county wants us to sell it. The opening price is only $500. Most people in the room laughed. The Miller Cannery was a joke. Everyone knew it was a broken, ugly building. Nobody wanted it. It was just trash. But Sarah's grandfather had once told her something. He had pointed at that old building and said, "That place has real machines inside, Sarah. Real French copper machines. They are worth much more than the building." Sarah closed her eyes and thought about her grandfather. She thought about his old stories. She thought about his love for real, honest work. Then she made a choice that would change everything. $500, said Mr. Dale. He was waiting for someone to bid. Nobody raised their hand. $500, he said again. Do I hear 500? Sarah's hand went up slowly. Her heart was beating very fast. 500, said Mr. Dale, looking surprised. Do I hear 600? A man in the front row laughed. His name was Mr. Richard Gentry. He was the richest man in the whole county. He owned most of the farms. He grew cheap strawberries and sold them to big stores. He was not a kind man. He liked to buy other people's farms and then destroy them. 600, said Mr. Gentry. He did not even look at Sarah. He just raised one thick finger. Sarah's hands felt cold. But she raised her hand again. 700, she said quietly. Mr. Gentry turned around and looked at her for the first time. He saw her old clothes. He saw her broken shoes. He saw her scared face. He smiled a mean smile. 800, he said loudly. I want everyone to hear this. I am bidding $800 for this garbage building. Sarah felt very small. $800 was all the money she had. If she spent it on this broken building, she would have nothing left. She could not even buy food. But her grandfather's words were in her head, real French copper machines. Worth much more. She took a deep breath. $800, she said in a shaking voice. I bid $800. The whole room went quiet. Everyone turned to look at her. Mr. Gentry's face turned red. He looked at Sarah like she was crazy. He laughed a loud, mean laugh. Let her have it, he said. She is going to lose her farm anyway. Soon she will need that ugly brick building to cry in front of. Everyone in the room laughed. They laughed at poor Sarah Mitchell. They laughed at her broken clothes. They laughed at her crazy idea to buy a building that nobody wanted. Going once, said Mr. Dale slowly. Going twice. Sold. To Sarah Mitchell for $800. The hammer came down hard. The sound was like a gunshot. Sarah Mitchell had just spent her last $800 on a building that everyone said was worthless. Everyone in the room laughed even harder. Sarah did not cry. She did not scream. She just sat very still. Inside her heart, she was thinking about what she knew. She was thinking about copper machines. She was thinking about her grandfather. She was thinking about the secret that nobody else understood. The next morning, Sarah stood in front of the old Miller cannery. The sun was just coming up. It was very cold. The building looked even worse in the daylight. The roof was falling down. The windows were broken. The walls were covered with dark green vines. There were holes everywhere. Sarah had a heavy tool to cut the padlock. She used it to break the old lock. Then she pushed the big metal doors open. They made a loud screaming sound. Inside, the building was dark and quiet. It smelled bad. It smelled like old dirt, dead birds, and sweet rotten fruit. Sarah turned on her flashlight. The light cut through the dark like a knife. The building was huge. It was like an empty church. There was broken glass on the ground. There were old wood boxes everywhere. There were piles of rusty metal and old electrical wires. Everything was covered with thick gray dust. Sarah thought she had made a terrible mistake. This place was just a big empty waste. There was nothing here. Just trash and sadness. But then she walked slowly toward the middle of the building. Her flashlight found something. Under a very old tarp, there was a big shape. A huge shape. Sarah grabbed the tarp and pulled it. Dust flew everywhere. But then she saw it. There, in the light of her flashlight, were two enormous copper machines. They were dirty and covered in green spots. But they were perfect. They were complete. They were exactly what her grandfather had told her about. Real French copper machines used for cooking fruit. Sarah touched one of them. Even covered in 30 years of dirt, she could feel how special it was. The copper was thick and strong. It was built to last forever. This machine was worth thousands and thousands of dollars. Sarah sat down on the dirty ground and cried. But these were happy tears. She had found something real. She had found something valuable. She had found a real treasure. For 2 weeks, Sarah lived in that old building. She did not sleep much. She worked from early morning until late night. She had bought cheap wire brushes and cleaning liquid with her last credit card. She scrubbed and scrubbed and scrubbed. Her hands got cut and started bleeding. Her back hurt from bending over. Her arms felt like they were going to break. But every day, the copper got brighter. Day by day, the beautiful copper color came back. It glowed like gold in the dim light. One day, while she was cleaning in the back office, Sarah found something else. There was an old leather book hidden behind a filing cabinet. She opened it carefully. The pages were very old and very fragile. Inside, a man named Elias Miller had written everything down. He had written his secret recipe for making fruit into jam. But this was not like any recipe Sarah had ever seen. This recipe was special. Elias Miller had a secret method. He used the big copper machines to cook fruit very slowly for 16 hours. The heat from the copper was perfect. He used juice from wild green apples instead of fake powder. This made the jam taste incredible. It tasted like real fruit. It tasted like summer. Sarah read the whole book in one night. By morning, she knew exactly what she had to do. Sarah went back to her family's farm. In the back, away from the main fields, there was a small section of her grandfather's special plants. These were wild blackberries. These berries were small and dark and very hard to grow. Big farms did not want them because they were too delicate. But they tasted like nothing else in the world. They tasted like magic. Sarah picked these berries by hand. She worked all day and all night. She picked 400 pounds of perfect berries. Her fingers got stained with dark purple juice. Her back ached from bending. But she kept going. Then she went back to the old cannery. She lit the big old furnace. The metal groaned and made loud sounds as it got hot. Steam rose up and filled the whole building. She was very afraid that the old machine would break. But it worked. It worked perfectly. Sarah added the berries to the big copper pot. She added sugar. She added the juice from wild green apples that she had found in the forest. Then she did exactly what Elias Miller had written in his book. She let it cook slowly for 16 hours. She stirred it carefully. She watched it all the time. The smell was incredible. It smelled like summer. It smelled like real fruit. It smelled like something magical. When it was done, she put the hot jam into clean glass jars. The lids made a popping sound as they sealed. 150 perfect jars of the darkest, most beautiful jam anyone had ever seen. Sarah looked at these jars and felt proud. She had done something real. She had made something with her own hands. This was not fake. This was not industrial poison. This was real jam made the right way. The next Saturday, there was a farmer's market in the town square. Sarah set up a small table at the very edge of the market, next to the dirty bathrooms. She had no fancy sign. She had no nice banner. She just had 50 jars of her dark purple jam and some bread to taste it with. She wrote a small label by hand and put it on each jar. She called it, Midnight Magic Blackberry Jam. She wanted to charge $12 for each jar. For 1 hour, nobody came. $12 for jam was too expensive. Everyone could buy jam at the big store for $3. Then a woman came. She was wearing nice clothes and looked rich. She was visiting from the city. "What is that?" she asked, looking at Sarah's jam. "It is blackberry jam," Sarah said quietly. "Made from wild blackberries. Made the old way. In real copper machines. Do you want to taste it?" The woman took a tiny piece of bread with jam on it. She put it in her mouth. Her eyes got very big. She stopped moving. "Oh my God," she said very slowly. This is the best thing I have ever tasted. This is real fruit. This is incredible." She bought 5 jars. Then something magical happened. She told her friends. They came to try the jam. They bought 6 jars. Then other people came. Then more people came. By the end of the day, Sarah had sold 48 jars. She had made almost $600. But more important than the money was something else. People understood. They tasted the difference between real food and fake food. They wanted the real thing. 1 week later, an expensive car came to Sarah's farm. A man got out. His name was David. He worked for a big food store called Whole Foods. He had tasted Sarah's jam at a dinner party in the city. He drove 3 hours to find her. "I want to sell your jam in my stores," he said. "I want to put it in 40 stores across the whole region. But I need 5,000 jars. You have exactly 4 weeks. I will pay you $60,000 when you deliver." Sarah felt like she could not breathe. $60,000. That was enough to save her farm. That was enough to fix the old cannery. That was enough to make everything work. But 5,000 jars meant she needed thousands of pounds of berries. She needed tons of sugar. She needed thousands of glass jars. She had no money to buy these things. She had no way to do this. For 3 days, Sarah felt hopeless. Then she had an idea. She called all the small farmers in the area. The farmers who had lost land to Mr. Gentry. The farmers who were poor and tired. She called them and asked them to meet her at the old cannery. 8 people came. They were all tired and broken from years of fighting against Mr. Gentry. They looked at the old machines like Sarah was crazy. But Sarah told them her plan. I will pay you 3 times the normal price for all the berries and fruit you can find. I will teach you the secret method. We will work together. When Whole Foods pays me, we will all share the money. We can beat Mr. Gentry together. These farmers had nothing to lose. They said yes. For 2 weeks, the old cannery became alive. It was like a factory of hope. Farmers brought blackberries and wild plums and old apples. Sarah and the farmers worked in shifts, sleeping in the old building, cooking fruit all day and night. The smell of boiling fruit filled the whole valley. It was sweet and beautiful. By the deadline, they had made exactly 5,000 jars. When the big Whole Foods truck came to pick up the jars, the farmers cheered. Sarah had done it. She had saved herself. She had helped her friends. She had built something real. Whole Foods paid Sarah $60,000. The jars sold out in 2 weeks. They were gone from every store. People loved them. They were not just buying jam. They were buying something real. They were buying quality. They were buying truth. A big company called Apex Capital wanted to buy Sarah's business for $2 million. They wanted to change the recipe. They wanted to make it cheaper and faster. They wanted to destroy what made it special. Sarah said no. Then a man came and tried to poison her jam so Whole Foods would not buy from her anymore. But Sarah caught him. She recorded him confessing everything. He was arrested. The people who sent him were arrested too. Mr. Gentry lost everything. His bank took his farms. His business closed. 6 months later, there was another auction in the courthouse. This time, all of Mr. Gentry's land was for sale. Sarah and her farmer friends bought it all for $5 million. They broke up the land and gave it back to the small farmers. They planted real fruit. They built a real community. The old Miller Cannery became the center of a whole new farm business. It created real jobs. It created real food. It created real hope. When people asked Sarah how she did it, she smiled. She remembered her grandfather. She remembered the moment when everyone laughed at her for spending $800 on a broken building. I believed in something real, she said simply. I believed in honest work. I believed in quality. And I never gave up. The dark purple jars of Midnight Magic Blackberry Jam are now sold in Whole Foods stores all across America. They cost $25 a jar. People buy them. People love them. They taste like summer. They taste like hope. They taste like the truth. And in a small valley in Oregon, a young woman who once had nothing at all now leads a business that helps hundreds of families. She did it by believing in herself. She did it by working hard. She did it by refusing to give up. The gavel came down that first day in the courthouse. Everyone laughed. But Sarah Mitchell had the last laugh.